For the longest time, a severe spinal cord injury was seen as, well, a life sentence of permanent paralysis. It's truly one of medicine's biggest, most difficult challenges. But what if we could actually rebuild what's been broken? In this explainer, we're going to look at the incredible science trying to do just that, repair the spinal cord. Let's dive in and see how scientists are starting to turn the impossible into a reality. Okay, so let's start with the basics. Just think of your spinal cord as the ultimate biological fiber optic cable. It's this incredibly dense bundle of nerves that runs from your brain all the way down your back. It's the critical link, the main line, between your brain and, well, everything else. Every single command to move, every sensation you feel, it all travels along this information superhighway. So what happens when that highway gets damaged? The communication is just severed. A traumatic injury, whether it's from an accident, a fall, or something else, it doesn't just cut the connection. It creates this chaotic, hostile environment right at the injury site where nerve signals just can't get through. And that is the devastating reality of a spinal cord injury, or SCI. And that right there is the million-dollar question. It's the question scientists have been wrestling with for years. See, it's not as simple as just trying to reconnect a couple of wires. The body's own response to the injury actually creates this whole complex cascade of problems that, up until now, has made any meaningful repair seem, well, pretty much impossible. So let's break down that puzzle. First things first, before we can even get to the solutions, we have to appreciate the sheer scale of the problem. We're not just talking about a biological challenge here. This thing has staggering economic and, most importantly, human costs. Let's start with this number, $20 billion. That is the estimated cost of spinal cord injury every single year in the United States alone. And that covers everything from the immediate medical care and long-term rehab to all the productivity that's lost when someone just can't work anymore. It's a massive, massive societal burden. But honestly, that financial number, it just pales in comparison to the human cost. Right now in the US, about 265,000 people are living with an SCI, and there are 12,000 new injuries every single year. Now, depending on where the injury happens, this can lead to paraplegia, that's a loss of function in the lower body, or quadriplegia, which affects all four limbs. And beyond the paralysis, people face a lifetime of increased risks for all sorts of other health problems, things like chronic pain, heart issues, respiratory problems, you name it. Now, to really get what the challenge is, you have to grasp this one crucial concept. A spinal cord injury isn't just a single event. It's more like a two-act tragedy. First, you've got the initial physical damage. And then you have the body's own chaotic, almost self-destructive response that comes right after. Just take a look at the difference here. On the left, that's a healthy spinal cord. It's organized, it's functional. But on the right, after that initial impact, a whole secondary cascade of damage just kicks off. We're talking hemorrhage, massive inflammation, the death of healthy cells around the injury, even demyelination, where the protective coating around the nerves gets stripped away. The body, in its attempt to fix things, actually makes the injury site way, way worse. And this whole destructive process isn't instant. No, it unfolds in phases over time. Within hours of the injury, cells just start to die. Then, over the next few days, this huge inflammatory reaction sets in. In the weeks after that, the tissue itself starts to physically change. And then, finally, after months, the whole area becomes dominated by this dense, tough scar tissue. And this scar, which is known as the glial scar, pretty much becomes the main villain in our story. The body forms it to try and seal off the injury, almost like a biological quarantine zone. But here's the problem. While this wall contains the damage, it also forms a completely impassable barrier. It's a physical wall that new nerve fibers just can't grow through. And even worse, it secretes this cocktail of chemicals that basically act like giant do not enter signs, actively stopping any attempt at nerve regrowth. So given this incredibly complex problem, what can doctors actually do about it today? Well, the current strategies are largely focused on one thing, and that's damage control. The goal is just to limit that secondary cascade we were just talking about. This image right here gives us a fantastic overview of the whole therapeutic landscape. I know, it looks a little overwhelming, there's a lot going on. We're going to dive into some of the more advanced stuff in a minute, but for now, let's just focus on the established first line of defense kind of treatments. So the immediate response is usually a combination of these three things.
On the drug front, high-dose steroids can be used to try and tamp down that intense inflammation. Surgically, it's critical to get in there fast, ideally within 24 to 36 hours, to remove any bone fragments and just relieve pressure on the cord. And then physical therapies like exercise and acupuncture are used to encourage any of the remaining neural pathways to work a little better. But notice what's missing. None of these actually repair the severed nerves.
And that brings us to the most exciting part of this story, the frontier of regenerative medicine. This is where science is making a huge shift from just damage control to actively trying to rebuild the bridge right across the injury site. So if we look at our map again, we're now zeroing in on these advanced strategies: cell therapy, tissue engineering, and biochemical interventions. These are the tools that scientists are developing to not just manage the injury, but to fundamentally try and reverse it. Tissue engineering is one of the most promising approaches out there, and the concept is just incredible. So first, scientists create a scaffold out of special biomaterials, something designed to mimic the natural environment of the spinal cord. Then, they seed this scaffold with helpful things like stem cells and growth factors that encourage nerves to grow. When this is implanted into the injury, it acts like a physical bridge, giving a supportive structure that can literally guide new nerve fibers to grow across the gap.
That sounds great, but what about that glial scar we talked about? You can't build a bridge if the construction site is blocked by a chemical wall, right? Well, that's where biochemical strategies come in. Scientists are using an enzyme called chondroitinase ABC. Let's just call it CABC. Think of it like a biological demolition crew. It specifically targets and breaks down those do-not-enter molecules in the glial scar, which effectively clears a path and makes the whole environment way more welcoming for nerve regrowth.
So we have tools to build bridges, and we have tools to clear the roadblocks. And this brings us to the most important takeaway from all the current research. The future of treating SCI, it isn't some single magic bullet. It's about combining all of these tools for a powerful, synergistic attack.
This is the crucial point. A single therapy, like just using an anti-inflammatory drug or just that CABC enzyme, only solves one part of a multi-part problem, and so the results are often pretty limited. But combination therapy, that's where you attack the injury on multiple fronts all at once. You can use an enzyme to clear the scar, a scaffold to bridge the gap, and stem cells to promote new growth, all at the same time. The effect isn't just 1 + 1 + 1, it's synergistic. The whole is way greater than the sum of its parts. This is the future.
And hey, you don't have to take my word for it. The source research we've been walking through concludes with this exact point: a combined treatment paradigm, one that integrates the old damage control methods with these new regenerative strategies. That is the most promising path forward. So for the first time, really, we have a whole toolbox of strategies that can target the different barriers to spinal cord repair. We have ways to fight the inflammation, clear out the glial scar, physically bridge the gap, and stimulate new growth. The pieces of the puzzle are finally starting to come together. The question is no longer if we can repair the spinal cord, but how soon the right combination of these tools will turn this incredible science into a clinical reality.